Hello!
Hello!
We're back.
We're back. Welcome to the Knitting a Good Yarn podcast. My name's Jackie.
I'm Carmen.
And this is a podcast about yarn, stories about yarn, and all the things that we encounter along our little yarn journey.
And people included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are coming to you from Southern Ontario. And we have a lot of whips today, don't we?
You have
I have a lot of whips.
Yes, I do not have very many whips. I only have one to show.
Oh, so we have a lot of FOs and whips.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're here, or if you found your way here because of the Inspired by Ellen Knit Along, which is still going on until the end of January next year, hang out. We are going to have a segment about that knit along at the end of our episode. So if you haven't gotten comfy and cozy, if you haven't gotten a beverage, maybe something to knit on, get comfortable. And
I'm comfortable.
You're comfortable? That's your comfortable seat?
We're chilling.
And I would love to start with your knit.
Well, thank you. Okay, which one, Jackie? I'm assuming you mean.
Yes.
My sweater.
The one that you're wearing.
Oh my gosh. So this is the Mayron. Don't you love how we probably just like mess all the names up from patterns that aren't in English, but it sounds like Mayron to me, M-A-E-R-O-N, by Natasha Hornby, Moonstruck Knits. Oh, I gush on my Instagram. I'm always gushing about Natasha, but honestly, it's so well deserved because her patterns are just so unique. They are complicated in that they're always innovative and not your normal. You know, you're not just gonna start with your collar and go down very often. This one is like it starts, I think, in here. You grow it up this direction. You make it all the way down. Like this expands. It becomes. Then you knit these things flat, the front and the back.
So you're knitting it side to side.
Yes.
Right? But with some like extra cool techniques in there.
Exactly.
But essentially you're knitting it this direction.
You start here, you knit, this, then this just magically appears, as you'll see. There's no seam, like you just come like this, and then you knit to like here, and then it splits, and you do these parts separately because, as you can see, this is where it stops, and you add this later. You're knitting back and forth. And then you do the same over on the other side, and then you join them together.
What?
Yeah. This is not very easy to show, but there's a way that it's joined right in the middle, and voila, you end up with this sweater. Oh, and then you add the neckline. Then you go back to the sleeves. You add them because it's provisional. So you can't see, do you see there's like literally no seam?
So I can't see it, which I feel like is a testament to the genius of the design, the testament to your craftsmanship with your hands, because I'm like, where are the seams, Carmen? I'm like really close and I can't
There are no seams. And I thank you for the gracious giving me credit, but really, I don't get anything. It's easy. You're literally it's just all ready for you. And these like cast-ons, these provisional cast-ons, again, these are one of those magic things for me where I don't understand it. And then it just happens and you just feel so good. Like you're just creating this structure. And because it goes this way, there are different things to think about actually. So row gauge was a major, that was important in this design. Whereas, I don't know if most of you out there, most of the time, like I never get row gauge. Like, so stitch gauge is what I kind of try to get in a typical sweater. That'll be the width of your sweater. So it tends to be really important to make sure that that is, where you're going for it. But in this, and then row gauge, you can always just knit longer. But because this is going side to side, it's your row gauge that actually creates the width of your sweater. So yeah, going along, it was like, it was nerve-wracking for me because I was, noticing my row gauge and then it was kind of shifting a bit and I got a little spooked, so I ended up being like doing this a little bit smaller. I used a smaller needle for this section, but it ended up working out. And if I had just trusted Natasha, it would have been even probably a bit better, because it would have been exactly the same and not coming up a little here. But
can you tell us about the yarn?
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Oh. So this is John Arbin. I know, like John Arbin. I think it's John Arbin Textiles.
Yeah.
Yarnadelic, which is a non-superwash. Oh, of course I didn't look into this, what it is.
It'll be in the show notes. Oh,
Yeah.
Good reminder. Everything that we talk about in terms of patterns and yarn and links and makers and all that kind of stuff, you're going to be able to find below in our show notes. You're just going to hit the arrow to show the description. And you can also look up Knitting a Good Yarn podcast on Ravelry, where we have a Ravelry group where there's all of our show notes. So anything that we don't recall, because this is what happens when you turn the camera on, you're like, we were talking about that 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
What's my name?
Can't remember.
I don't know.
No idea.
Yeah. All of that information is going to be available to you in that way. So.
Yes, and Jackie's amazing. I want to put out there that she says we will have it all in the show notes, but she's the one who does it all. And it just magically appears. And I'm like, oh my God, yay. Okay. So it is some kind of British, it might be a cross between two breeds, if I'm remembering correctly, British breeds. This is a wonderful company. They care about, like wool production in the UK, like just a really a good company, I think, in terms of their sort of ethos and what they care about in the world to begin with. And then as a bonus, the wool is lovely. It's like, as I say, it's non-superwash, but it's super soft.
It's really soft.
And when you're knitting with it, I was actually remarking to myself how enjoyable it was to have this wool going through my hands, as I was knitting. And I was even thinking to myself, this is close, if you've been with us at all, we love Nutiden. It's the number one. But this is actually not far from it. I was thinking to myself, this might be my favorite spun wool to work with.
Wow.
Now, until you will see later, then I found one more that has inched it up. But that's for something that's quite easy to get. It's in my mind pretty reasonably priced, especially since it's very eco-conscious, which usually, if you're going to make those efforts and pay people well and that kind of thing, the wool ends up being a bit more expensive, I guess. But because they're doing it maybe on a larger scale, seems like it's a bit better, I guess. But I mean, it's all subjective, obviously, with that. But yeah, I love it. The colorways are Galetta's Guitar and Of My Hands, which I feel like it's not coming out totally true. It's more of what would you, a tealy.
It's a teal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like
more
a
teal.
Deep teal. But I just.
And this reads to me like there's a mahogany red in it.
Yes.
In this lighting at this moment.
And it actually, you've got it, because even when I was knitting with it, it has a lot of, I don't know if it's going to come through. Nope. It had a lot of different flecks and things in the yarn. So this was a delight, all over, a complete delight to knit. The pattern is beautiful. I love the wool with the pattern. It actually, so the pattern calls for fingering, but the fingering that Natasha used is, in my opinion, more of a sport weight. It was, I think, about 350 yards per 100 grams, which to me is more like a sport weight. So I chose Yarnadelic because it's a sport weight wool, as opposed to they had, I think, Devonia fingering. Yeah, so chose that, worked out perfectly. And actually another test knitter also used the same kind of wool, but in a different color scheme, very a romantic light pink with it's beautiful. Natalie knit something in the show notes.
We'll find it, or go on Ravelry, look at all the project page if you are able to access Ravelry. Otherwise, maybe Instagram, checking the hashtag. And you'll see this. I want to say that, I want to say three things. One, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Two, what I love most about it, which I don't know if you can really see on camera, maybe if we do a little zoom in, is this wrap stitch detail.
Oh yes, I didn't even talk about, this is we have a coffee table right here. And that's what's stopping me from actually, we're gonna have to make sure we don't do this. Look at this. Whoa, nope.
That is yoga right
That's
there.
not happening. Okay.
You can sit there. That's,
There.
that's a
Can
nice
you just
little...
see these?
Yeah.
Oh, as I'm blocking you with my hair.
Beautiful wrap stitch detail.
Yeah.
Which I think in this particular yarn looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I think the choice to use something perhaps that is a little bit on the rustic end of yarns, as well as non-superwash, gives the yarn the capacity to grip, and then also the capacity to fill out a little bit.
Yes.
Right, because we're going to come back to talking about this wrap stitch as we go through some of the other things that we have to show.
Isn't that funny
today.
too? Because we didn't even plan it.
No,
It's
I
just
kind of
that-
planned it.
Oh, did you?
I did. Well, sort of.
Okay.
But
I didn't.
yeah.
What a surprise.
But that it has, because do you want to talk about how you actually make this stitch? Because I think that it's a really fun one.
Yes, I'm wondering, is that okay? Like with,
Okay, true.
yeah,
All right. So we'll say
it is fun.
that it's very fun. You used a cable needle, which
Yes.
I've done this, a similar stitch is on
Yes.
what I'm wearing. What we'll say is that
Same.
you work it as you're knitting along. So it's not embroidery. It's not like you
Yeah.
knit the thing and then you go back and you do that. But it is done while you knit, and it creates this really beautiful texture that I think I think what would be important in terms of yarn choice for this particular pattern is to choose something where the wrap stitch looks good, because I've tried to work this wrap stitch with other yarns before, and sometimes if it's not a yarn that will poof a little bit, then the wrap
Yes.
stitch doesn't look as wonderfully poofy and textural.
That's a really good point.
So
Yes. And I did, true to form, nothing to make this puff and didn't even think about that stuff. It just worked so nicely that
Yeah.
luckily I was like, hooray, look at this, how lovely it is. Yeah.
and this is another design that if you went and looked on the project page, or if you went and looked at it on Instagram, I think this is a design where the color choice makes such a huge impact on the overall look of the garment. I remember I was so struck by how your color choice in particular gives it such a different look than the sample, which is also beautiful and
Yes.
would be more the color selection that I would choose. But then of course, this is how inspiration happens. Then you have somebody who knits something absolutely stunning, and then you're like, I need to have this version in this color scheme. It's such a nice fall.
It is. It has a
really nice
warmth
fall.
to it in terms of the colors that I think really work. And you know, it's funny, I just realized I should mention too where I got this wool, which was at Knit with Attitude in Stokes Newington in London. This was part of my London trip. I talked about it in, I think, 2 episodes ago? No, last episode. Yeah, and just like how fun it was to be there. And I actually recall choosing these skeins, like looking in the little box in the wall that had the Yarnadelic yarns, and just deciding like which colors, and there were a few others. And you know, it's one of those things when you choose something in life, like, and think about, oh, it all worked out, you know, like it's, you make a decision about these ones, and then there are other ones that I could have chosen, but I'm just so happy.
Did you buy the yarn with the intention of making this
Yes.
garment? Okay.
Yes.
I was like,
This
because
was-
if you just like pulled it off the shelf and it worked out beautifully, that would also be incredibly romantic. And
It
I
would
believe it
be.
because that happens to you all the time.
Well, yeah, well, thank you, but it more like I am happy with how things kind of come together. I think if you love something, then it ends up working out. So very happy. This was actually, I was over in England and the test came up, and so I didn't have wool to knit it, and then I was able to go and get it. So very happy.
Oh, it's so good.
Thank you. And speaking of beautiful wrap stitches and gorgeousness, what is this?
So this is the Moonlight Meadow by B. Mandarin's Melody Hoffman. I knit this in Nutiden yarn. The main color is Troll's Cross, and then sort of this little stripe is in Ragad, and then this wrap stitch is in Villgott. So what I do want to say about this knit is that I knit the beta version. So I'm a Patreon of Melody Hoffman's, which means that in addition to sort of getting 2 really delightful podcast episodes once a month, what also happens is that she'll send out beta versions of some of the designs that she is creating before it sort of goes out through the testing process, etc. And so I did this morning take a peek at whether sort of the version that I knit and the version that's actually out now is similar, and it is incredibly similar except for one particular thing, which has nothing to do with the beta version, everything to do with me. Okay, so the color work in the pattern, you can see that there's kind of like 3 rows here in the stripe. Yeah. This center row is actually supposed to be in this color, but I was so excited to cast it on that I just cast it on and got down to here and realized, why does mine not look like the sample? Reread the pattern and was like, oops, I was supposed to change it out, but I'm still really happy with how it worked out.
Yes.
I knit it more cropped than in the pattern, and this arm length was not intentional. For whatever reason, I thought, yeah, this will block out and it will work out, and it didn't.
It just made perfect bracelet length sleeves, which I'm doing intentionally.
But
well done.
I had actually cast this off because when the beta version came out, it would have been actually, I think, last about a year ago.
Yeah.
I cast it on. I loved it so much. Knit. Block. And the arms didn't come out the way that I wanted to. And so I have not worn this knit at all. Oh. Until such a day that I came over and was asking Carmen, what do you think I should do with the sleeves? Do you think that I rip this back and add a whole pattern repeat and then add the sleeves, which once I've cast something off, it's really difficult for me to go back.
Me too.
And Carmen's like, but I like the sleeve length. Why are you doing anything about it? And I was like, do we like the sleeve length? Do we like the sleeve length? And I do.
Totally love the sleeve length.
And I realized that this is going to come back in one of my other whips, but I realized that it's really common for me, this is knit top down, that when I knit a top down sweater, I keep trying it on. And so that sort of helps with fit. And when I try it on, I never bend my arm, and so I always end up with sleeves that are a little bit shorter, because when I put it on and I've split for sleeves and I wriggle it on, and then I always do some version of this and go, how do I like it? It's a good size. And then I never do this and realize, oh, here, this is the actual arm length. Yes. So those of you experienced knitters are like, of course you have to bend your arms, because most of us don't go through life like this.
Like that Molly Shannon character off of Saturday Night Live.
Exactly, like this. But, oh no, I've lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No,
distracted.
It's okay, this happens.
That you do this.
Right. But because of the way that I do that, and I'll stand like this, often what I'm looking for is that my sleeve length and my body length are not the same thing, not the same, which I learned from Jackie from the Caddy Jacks Knits podcast. But if I bend here,
it's exactly,
you see that it's close, but not quite. Whereas if I did this, if I actually looked at the proportion of that, I don't love that proportion. I'd have to lengthen everything. So bracelet sleeves.
I love it. And I remember actually, I think I'm a person that, funny enough, once I get a rule about something, sometimes I can just sort of think that's the rule and not really think about it and be like, okay, so, and I've always, since Jackie said that years ago, she had talked about this, Jackie from Caddy Jacks, I'm like, oh, well, I can never have my sleeves and my thing be the same, because Jackie said not to, and it was just kind of like that. And I think I'm now going, I don't know that I mind if it's actually the same.
Yeah.
I don't even know, this one might, I don't know. Oh no, they're a little bit longer, but
yeah. So, but I do think it does kind of make a difference in terms of proportion. And I think when Jackie was talking about it, she was specifically talking about sweaters that are a little bit more cropped. So this is not a super crop, but it's, relatively cropped, and being able to have that for her body, that proportion works. And I think for my body, I would agree that it looks good that way. So this is my Moonlight Meadow that I wore because I knew that this was happening and wanted to match and wrap stitches.
Well, and you know what? So yes, you think about things, obviously. Love it. I love also that you knew I would wear this because you didn't even ask that I would wear this, but you knew that I would.
Well, I knew it would. I knew you would show it because I would want you to show it, and also it was one of your recent efforts.
Yes. So, but I must have, when I saw this pattern, maybe that's also one of the things I love, because I did really love this little floral motif going up and down, and maybe it was because I was like, oh, Jackie did that. I just subconsciously, I'm going to give my subconscious the awareness.
Yeah. But it makes me appreciate how much I love texture. I feel like right now in my knitting practice, like texture is a big thing that I'm feeling drawn to.
Yes.
And I tend to, as you guys will see, fall in love with something, and then I'm like, I'm going to do it again, and then I'm going to do it again, and then I'm going to do it again, and in a different iteration or in the exact same iteration, because I kind of get into a mood around it. So
yeah, I know, it's funny. And if you I think that's where that openness comes in. Like if you just let yourself experience what you're being drawn to in whatever moment, without even necessarily thinking it all through, but just really trusting that this is what your body is asking for, like we might not know it with our thinking brain, but we might just be like, for some reason I'm knitting this again, or all of my knits tend to be like, right now I'm wanting shawls. I want shawls, all shawls. And I would tell you 6 months ago, I'm like, what do you do with a shawl? I never wear them. I make them and then I don't know how to, and now I just want to wrap myself with stuff right now. So I'm trusting that.
Yeah. And I think it's, at least for me, knitting is one of those places where it feels like there's no stakes, right? Like,
yes.
If you're knitting for yourself, then really, at least for me, I knit for my own pleasure. And so, being able to say, but I feel excited about that, and so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. It's like a low stakes exploration of saying, what would life be like if I got to follow my desires without having to logic them out or justify them or sort of reason about it. And then it's usually after the fact, before we podcast, as I lay out everything that I've knit, then I'm like, all you've been doing is wrap stitches. So
it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that I wanted to say about this particular knit and about just the process is, ever since we resolved the sleeve tension for me, now it's like I put it on all the time. And so that's where I think knitting is so beautiful, because it is in a way it can be like a solitary pursuit in the sense that you're like at home knitting, but the reflection of your knitting and the benefit of having like someone that you can speak to in a community who can reflect back something about it that you can't necessarily see is so beautiful. And that's why I'm so thankful for Carmen.
Well, and I feel the same. And I know we're going to talk about this, I think probably a little bit later in one of your other whips, but I really do. We've had quite a number of experiences of going with something, like myself, like I'll come, actually, our little KAL thing. I started knitting this, and I said this before, but I started knitting it and I was like, I don't know. And I usually go through this. I like really want something. I feel very secure and comfortable with it. Then I start knitting it, and then I often second guess it. And then it's through your eyes when you see it and you're like, I love that. And then I'm like, oh, I do too. It's like, it almost clarifies that we do, but we can kind of second guess things. So having a knitting bestie is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And whether that bestie is like, in person, or whether it's through the various ways that we connect virtually. Yeah. Right? To see something that somebody else has made and be like, oh my gosh, I love that. And then to follow that sort of rabbit trail of passion or excitement or inspiration or sort of desire, which I hope we're going to talk about more today.
Yes.
Some more. What's this?
Yeah, let
What's
me talk
happening
about
here?
These. So, no. Okay, we were talking about these too, and Jackie was like, but will I wear these? That is what I also was like when I first saw. I was like, would I wear this kind of thing? And this is one of these knits that you didn't realize you needed until you knit them, and then you literally just don't want to take them off.
So what's the pattern?
So it's not a pattern. It's a recipe. So we've talked about Miss Evil before. Yeah. Yes, of course, with the Sakura socks, and So Miss Evil creates recipes, not patterns. She is so inspiring and so encouraging of all of us to, again, trust in our own ability to create something and to think about ways that knitting, first of all, thinking about what you need in your wardrobe. I'll just say, I don't know if it's still available, but she has this whole series called On Creativity that I think everyone needs to watch. Actually, no, it's on her blog.
It is available. We'll link it below.
Good.
Yeah.
She actually has you think about what is it in your wardrobe that you're actually looking for, and then create something based on that. So it's not this idea of like, oh, I see this pattern and I want that pattern and I'm just going to knit it, which is also lovely and exactly what I've been doing until her, right? Yeah. So that's a beautiful way to do it. But there's something different about what she does because they're recipes that give you a framework, but then allow you to create something that is completely tailored to your body. So every one that I've done so far, she's got a hat, she's got socks, she's got the most comfortable mittens in the world, her Vila mittens. You literally start from the top and you create it to fit your hand perfectly. This is another one of those. So you are starting at the top and then you are creating a hand warmer. So as you see, there's nothing, your palm is completely free. And this just warms your hand. And her original recipe kind of just talks about doing this in garter. So you can just, it's knit flat. So it's literally just knitting. Then you decide what kind of thing you want to do around the wrist. Then she encourages this kind of section, which is a bit of a color work. You can decide. I just looked up on Pinterest at different color work motifs that were there. If I had my knitting in the Nordic tradition book from our KAL, I would have gone through that because that has a bunch of also beautiful Nordic motifs that you can do. But I just picked this one that's kind of like a gingham. And then you finish it off. It takes about 5 hours, I think, to do the pair.
5 hours.
Yeah. It takes no time.
And it's so complex.
You enjoy, I know. And it's, so, okay. And I want to say, I was like, why couldn't I put cables? Like, why couldn't I? She didn't have it. There's no pattern. But I've done a lot of cables. Now, as I was doing it, I forgot different things. So I was like, okay, well, I guess all you'd have to do is like start a center cable. And I didn't think about the fact that then when you get to your other cables, if you just have them right beside each other, that's a certain look. And it's hard to know, like, should they cross and things? And I was like, oh, most cable things I've ever knit have pearls in between to separate the cables. So I just pulled it out. It was so fast. And I like redid it with this. And I basically just created this thing as I went. And it just felt so empowering to make something exactly how I want it. I want to make it. And because I think it's so small, the stakes are so much lower that you feel this freedom of like, why not? Like, why not just go for it? And then after I was like, okay, so now I need a sweater to match my free mittens. Did I say the name of it? They're called Free. F-R-I.
Yeah.
It's probably like free or something, but free in Canadian English. I think she chose the word because I do think it also means free in Swedish, and really this idea of just like being you're free, but you're also like held, you know.
Aww.
And we were talking, Jackie, it's funny because when she tried these on, you had the same feeling as me that when I knit these, the color work, I didn't think when I was doing it that I probably could have gone up a needle size. I didn't end up doing that. So as you can see, the color work is much tighter than the rest of it. But because of that, once I get it on my hand, which is, I gotta kind of finagle my way in, but once it's on, it's like actually so, it's wrapping me right around this really lovely area. And there are acupressure points in your wrist that are calming and make you feel just really secure. And it's like these cuffs keep me feeling lovely. I'm wrapped in wool. And then my hands, the top of my hands just feel toasty, but it's not so much. It doesn't get in the way of anything else because my hands are literally completely open.
Free.
And it's free to do this pattern. Miss Evil gives these things for free. They're just, they're recipes she offers to the world. She's incredible. She's an incredible person. I will talk about her in one more FO too, that I got permission to talk. Oh, I didn't. I think I'm allowed to talk about it. I just realized I didn't get the final word. I'm going to talk about it because I'm pretty sure she's good with it. She said I can show it. I just don't know how much. Maybe I'll talk about it only a little. Carmen. But anyway.
Episode 1.92.
This is us. We're 4 episodes in?
This is technically episode 2, but this is the 4th time we've recorded, just in case you were confused about that.
Yeah. So
anyhow,
I don't know if it's going to improve. This is going to be me along the way, all the ways. Episode 10 will still be the same. I was going to talk about the yarn, but did you want to say anything about?
I wanted to say about the fact that I just wanted to say that, like, there was that when I put, like, obviously they're beautiful. The color choice is inspired. But when I put it on, like, the moment it went on my wrist, I thought, I feel like for the rest of my life, I want this part to be wrapped and held. And there are other sort of places, it reminded me of other places on my body that I like to have, like, hugged or held, and how I am now going to go about finding knits that are going to hold the parts of my body that give me a sense of that, like, safety and comfort.
Yes.
And so
security, like, it really feels like a hug. It does. It really does.
And there are probably people out there who would be like, this is the last place I want to be held. But for me, really incredible how held you feel by just this little section and having everything else sort of open.
This one too, which you wouldn't think. It just has this little, like, toastiness to it, but not in... It doesn't get in the way. I love a fingerless mitt also is something that until a few months ago, I never really understood the idea of it. Like, I was like, but I'm just going to be cold. Like, why wouldn't I have an entire mitten? Like, this doesn't make sense. And then I made them and I was like, oh, okay, this is why, like, it's pretty, those are pretty awesome. But these are, I think, even more practical at this time of the year, because a fingerless mitt, you don't need the warmth. Like, obviously I'm not going to wear these on their own in December in Canada. It's going to be too cold because this all needs to be warmed. But I might wear it under another mitten.
Who knows?
Like, there's just all this option.
It's
and I just want to wear them all the time. I just have them on. As soon as I knit them, I just basically kept them on. And then you mentioned the color. So I can't take credit for this color combo. I can take credit for picking it. But for looking at it and seeing its gloriousness and saying must be mine. But this happened again. I was on vacation. We did another house swap because that made sense, to go 6 weeks in England and 2 weeks later leave and go to Vancouver for a few weeks. That's what we did. And this time, because maybe I wasn't thinking, I didn't bring enough wool, I only brought one color of Nutiden. So when Anna Lee, Miss Evil, put out the call for she was doing kind of like a pre-test, so she was just asking some people to quickly do the pattern and see what we thought. I actually had to say no because I was like, I only have one color of Nutiden, like, and like this mitt, she's like, you could do it in one. And I'm like, I could, but like this, I loved, like, in all the versions, there was all this beautiful color work, and I'm like, no, I need to wait until I can get back to my stash. And I made it about a week, I think. And I was like, all the versions were coming out. All these people are making these gorgeous things. I'm like, no, I need to do it. So I ended up in Vancouver. We were down at Granville Island, and there was this beautiful little wool shop. I was going to check this right beforehand, and then I realized that my phone is already being used to record, so I can't actually confirm this, but I think it's Fiber Arts Collective.
Show notes.
I might be off on that, but I think it's Fiber Arts Collective. And cute little place. By the way, Granville Island in Vancouver is just full of artisans. Like, we spent the entire day there, and if I was living there, I would be buying all of this art. Like, beautiful. But yeah, so went in there and I'm like, well, what can I get? And there was this little mini skein set, 5 colors, a little fade of blues. You can so it started with this, and then it kind of faded here, and then it had this nice pop of an orangey pumpkin. And I was like, oh my God, that'll be perfect. I can just do that. And so then I created it based on that. And it was 100% Peruvian Highland wool, non-superwash. It's been great.
It's gorgeous.
And I have like a bunch left. So I've started making one of her hats, Stila hats with it, with the same motif.
This also goes together so well. And I feel like it's like, I often, when I am knitting with something, when I like a travel knit or something that comes from it, then it sort of reminds me of it. And I actually feel like this is so Vancouver.
Right? Yes.
Like it's like mountains and the sea and the sky and the ocean. Like, I don't know if that was intentional, but I was like,
I've thought of it after.
Vancouver in a mitt.
It really is.
You thought of it after. See, I love that, right? The things that you are drawn to have some value to you. Whether you know it at the time or not, I believe that our desires come from that sort of deep, deep soul heart place. Definitely. And so our craft lets us just follow those deep, deep heart, soul desires. And then it's always fun to sort of see where it takes us and trust that the knitting and the following of that desire is feeding us in some way, whether we realize it or not.
Absolutely. And then the after, I think people's lives are like this too. Sometimes I say with my clients like that our stories are like novels, like our lives are like a novel and we have different chapters. And sometimes we're in chapter 10 and going, this is the worst thing ever. Like, why am I in chapter 10? Why is this happening? And by chapter 14, you're like, oh, like that's why chapter 10 had to happen, because it led me to all of these other amazing things. But when you're in the midst of it, it can be kind of challenging. So I think kind of going along with that, it's like you can choose something not exactly knowing why, but I think that that's one thing Caroline from Nutiden is also taught, is this idea of like the wool will come to you even if you don't, like she says, if you are attracted to one of these colorways, you should get it. Like, even if you don't know why, you should get it because there's something inside of you that wants that or needs that, and it all makes sense after. So I think, yeah.
It also goes the other way, right? In the sense that sometimes we want something with our eyes more than we want it with our heart. And there have been some colorways that have been the case in which I've got, like, there was a whole shop update that I just missed because I didn't convert the time properly. And there were so many colors that I wanted with my eyes that I never got, that I actually, you have one of them. And when I encountered it, it was beautiful, but I was like, I don't need to knit with this.
Yes. That's so interesting. There was another shop update that I had, the same thing happened to me last year, and they're colors that I would have wanted, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So
I love it.
I have a really dear friend who sort of says, can we choose to trust in life?
Aww.
You know, there's lots of reasons why we might find it difficult to trust life and trust in life, but can we choose to trust in life? And I'm like, when it comes to wool, I choose to trust in life, the wool that I'm meant to work with, that I'm meant to find, that I'm meant to, you know, be not working or in the country for the available to kind of shop when a shop update comes up. Like, I just trust in life and trust in the craft to bring me what it is that I need.
I love it.
And I love that your chapter of like traveling to the UK and London and Vancouver, you'll always have a little talisman there.
Yes, exactly. Love it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, okay. Do you have any other finished objects? Or have you even talked about any finished? Yes, you do, don't you?
I do have a bunch of finished objects.
Okay, good.
I'm
Let's
looking
move
at
to
the
you.
pile. Okay.
Do it.
I'm going to do a little outfit change.
Okay. Love the outfit changes. I'm like, entertain. Oh, look at this. By the way, people are probably gonna be like, what is going on? This is my life. And I love that I didn't even move it because I noticed this before when we were sat down. I was like, what is this? And then I put it back. This guy. Okay. Jackie, yes.
So, this one's going to take a while.
Oh my God.
This sweater is a saga. It's a lovely saga. I feel like, so in the story of my knitting journey, this sweater is its very own chapter.
Yes, I can understand why you say that.
So let me, I had made notes for this because Okay, so this pattern is the Sailors Gansey by Hannah Rimmen. And the base of this pattern is the Sailors Gansey by Hannah Rimmen. I knit it in Nutiden yarn using the colorway Live. So how do I even start talking about the sweater? So first of all, I didn't know that this sweater existed. I didn't know that this pattern existed. But Carmen knew that I had very, very deeply fallen in love with this colorway, which is from one of the collections. I can't remember which collection this year. So I want to start by showing you to the best of my ability.
Oh, this color.
This colorway.
Oh.
So this colorway is, if you look at especially, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you, what color is this?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I look at it, it's got some blue, it's got some aqua, it somehow also has orange in it.
Yep.
And still manages to be blue.
Yep.
And there's a gray tone to it as well. So love this color so much. And I was like, it's so special. It's the most special colorway. I need to knit something in it, but I could not decide. I was like, what pattern is like worthy of this like yarn that I'm so enamored with? And of course, Carmen found a pattern, and that pattern was the Sailors Gansey by Hannah Rimmen. So I'm gonna do that thing where I try and show you a picture on my phone if that works successfully.
Just so I don't get, again, too much credit here. I mean, I found somebody else who had done a beautiful sweater in Live.
Yes.
So it wasn't like I was like, do this sweater. I was like, Jackie, look at this.
Yeah, so her name is Ellen. Hi, Ellen. And she knit this sweater in Live. And I actually saved the post where she showed it, because the moment I saw it, I was like, it's showing. Oh yay, it's showing.
Oh God.
I was just like, it's perfection.
Yep.
And I must have it. And it was the perfect pattern to color combo. So I cast it on.
Yes.
I cast it on as per pattern with the needle size. And there's a texture stitch, right? So it's basically a top down round yoke, and you run this texture all along the sweater. And I tried to knit the sweater with 3 different needle sizes on 3 different occasions. I tried to figure out how to do the texture stitch. I sent it to Carmen being like, am I interpreting this properly? Because like, it is not working. It doesn't look like the sample of the, it doesn't look like it looks in the sample. It doesn't look like Ellen's version, which I know it's not about the yarn, because I can see that Ellen's doing it properly, but I cannot for the life of me with my hands and this yarn make the texture.
Yeah.
It didn't look right. There wasn't enough of a pop. And on the 3rd version, which I knit with like the smallest needle size that I tried, I started to kind of get the texture, but it was really unpleasant to knit.
Right.
And I felt like I was strangling the yarn. I felt like I was like, my hands were very unhappy, and I was like, no, this is not why we knit. We don't knit to produce something that we see that's beautiful, or at least I don't. I knit to honor the yarn. I knit to honor myself. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess this isn't for me. And then I sat with it for a day and was like deeply heartbroken, because I was like, I want this sweater.
Yes.
And then I remembered that I had this stitch that I knew how to do that created a similar pattern, which is this wrap stitch that we keep talking about. So rather than doing the texture pattern in the pattern, I did a little wrap stitch to kind of create this texture. And so one of the things, I'm gonna laugh because it took so much preparation for me to do this. One of the things that I thought of when I saw the yarn is like one of my favorite bags.
I love this.
And how much I love this bag.
Yes.
And that's really what I was referencing when I saw the sweater. I was like, I love it. Why do I love it? Oh, because it looks like my favorite tote bag. And so I feel like I've done an okay job.
You nailed it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Of that. So why is this particular knit a chapter in my knitting journey? Well, because it's really what gave rise to, actually, in retrospect, I realized that this is the sweater that gave rise to the idea behind the Inspired by Ellen knit along.
Okay.
Because it was like, I see something that I love.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense of rightness about this pattern needing to be made, me needing to make it, it needing to be on my body, but I can't make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I make it work? And how I made it work is by sort of looking to what I know and what works for me and what I love. And it also was the beginning of me discovering again through Carmen's eyes that actually my favorite construction is a round yoke.
Mm-hmm.
For my body, it works really well.
So beautiful.
And so what I did in this particular pattern, because it was top down, is I followed the instructions. In terms of the increases, feel like I found an increase ratio that I adore, and then I just sort of subbed out the texture stitch for my texture stitch, which when I make a Ravelry project page for this sweater, I will put the information of sort of how I did it. So the other thing is that I think that this sweater might become the base sweater for all other sweaters that I knit in the future.
That's a heavy statement.
That's a heavy statement. Yeah. I heard it and then I held it back. But what was happening as this was going on is me saying to Carmen, because my row gauge was different from the pattern, I'm like, when am I going to split for sleeves? How am I going to split for sleeves? So I went and I measured another sweater that I liked, found the yoke depth, decided that's where I was going to split my sleeves. And then I sort of had an explosion of creativity in which I was like, I can use this pattern and do so many things with this, right?
Yes.
I could sub out a different texture. Like I'm thinking seed stitch would look really good in a particular yarn, or even to do color work. Like it's just infinite.
Yes.
Because I love the silhouette. I know, the length. I know when to split for sleeves, and we can really make something that you love.
Beautiful. As you were talking, I was like, also color work, but also lately I've been thinking about texture work.
Yes.
So the same color, but you're using pearls and knits to create those, like a star and things, like these different things. Like that would be so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think, in as much as if you've been watching this podcast for a while, we love color and we love color work. I also really love a basic.
Me too.
With a little something unique about it.
Yes.
So yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. And Jackie, you can tell that it's got a story to it by the way that, and that you've made it through the hurdles and you're on the other side because of the way you look when you're wearing it. Like you can tell there's just like energy, the happiness, right? The sense of like, this is meant to be, I always knew it was meant to be on my body, and I've figured it out how to do it. And I think that's really great, because I think in earlier, at least I can speak for me, like earlier times of my knitting, I would have given up because I wouldn't have had any confidence that I could do something different. Like I would need somebody to create a pattern for me to be able to do it. And now, and for me, I think it was Miss Evil who really has opened that idea of like, oh, I can do things. I could do it a little differently. I've learned a lot in all the things that I've knit. And I didn't realize how much I've learned.
Yeah.
So I think you really had that confidence in just trying it. And then just the thrilling nature of, successfully making this happen, I think. Beautiful.
What was the other thing? So talking about sort of how you don't know is what you need until sort of after. It's kind of like I didn't know that this was setting me up for us to do the Inspired by Ellen KAL, which has really like opened up my knitting inspiration and the knitting world for us in this podcast in such a huge way. But also one of the things that I do with Nutiden, am I going to talk about this? Yeah, I'm going to talk about this.
You are.
One of the things that I do with Nutiden is I meditate with it. So
I love that.
Often when I receive colors, there's of course the like unpackaging of sort of like seeing what the colors are, but Carolyn often talks about each colorway sort of having a bit of a story and having a bit of an energy. And so as you knit with it, you might be able to absorb some of its story and some of its energy. And so what I used to do is I used to spend a few days with each sort of colorway and sort of meditate on it. And often there would be like poetry or writing that would arise out of the colorway. And so I did that with Liv. And I had written a little bit of poetry around it. And it wasn't until I finished the object that I realized that what I had written in that poem is in fact the whole process of knitting this. And the poem I'm not going to read because I'm not ready to do that yet.
I was going to say, I need to read this poem. You might have sent me, I think, a bit
I did.
It. Yes, because I remember this beautiful.
Maybe I will post about it. Maybe I'll include it in the show notes. But it really was this idea that this colorway with the blue and the orange was about our capacity to sit in that sometimes uncomfortable place between two things that seem oppositional. Like how does blue and orange go together in one colorway? Like, this is Carolyn's genius. And also the image that came to me when I was meditating on it was water flowing over little pebbles. And I don't know if you see that, but that's what I sort of see. This ability to allow the yarn and my hands to flow in the way that I want to. And then I feel like often when I approach challenges in my life, I don't always welcome them. And so there was something about doing these wrap stitches that take a little more time and a little more intentionality, in which I was like, you know, instead of me moving through water and flow and trying to make things easy, I'm actually creating little pebbles as a way of sort of saying, like, I embrace the challenges in my life. So
yes, it's not just a smooth route. It's not just, it goes over a little bit of bumps, but
yeah. Knitting is not a smooth route. So this is something that I've gotten or read a couple of comments or received from people who are like, how do you get your knitting to like always work out so well? And I just want to like say, that's not how it goes at all.
No.
And that's one of the funny things I think about sort of social media and the podcasting world is we're so often talking about our knitting successes.
Yes.
And so I've actually brought some things that aren't failures, right? But that were not a smooth process. There were bumps and hurdles and uncertainties and texts to Carmen and calls to Carmen being like, what am I doing? I'm ripping it out.
And I'm like, no, wait, don't do it.
Yeah, and so we find a way. Anyhow.
Oh, I love it.
That was a lot of
beautiful
chatter and not so much about the project, but
I think it is about the project. I think it is.
The project.
And I think it is just about the whole process, right, of knitting. And I think that that's something I love about you. Like, I think you've made me think about my knitting in, like, I can see myself changing in terms of the ways I think about stuff and what I need and like sitting and reflecting a lot more. So thank you. And I'm glad you're sharing that with the world.
Yeah.
I also am so glad that it's actually cooling down now so that you can wear this gorgeousness.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And that was just so we could, for people to know, that was double-stranded?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I do, it was Liv held double-stranded and I knit the body on a 5.5 millimeter needle. And it used 328 grams of Nutiden. And I would say probably because the wrap stitch involves you wrapping the yarn around the stitches, I think it sort of made it a little bit bigger, but all of this I will include in the Ravelry project notes.
And would that be about a size 2 generally?
That was so I knit it, I knit the size 1 to get the size 2, which is 100 centimeter bust. But I would say that this color actually grew a little bit more after blocking. And so I no longer remember the bust size, but I'll make sure that I include that in the Ravelry project notes because the pattern gauge is tighter than what I ended up knitting out so that I could get the feeling of the fabric that I liked.
Awesome.
All right.
Fantastic. Beautiful.
What else do you have?
So we've got a lot. We have a lot. 54 minutes and we're still on FOs, but this is what happens. I mean, mine are smaller, so this is another small one, and I'm just gonna go for it. I'm pretty sure it's okay. It's coming out very soon anyway. So
if it's not, we'll just delay the publishing.
That's right. This. That's okay. See? You know what to do. So I've been so in love with Annalie's designs, and this was so fun. This was the first time in all her other patterns, she's kind of she's released her, sorry, not patterns, her recipes. She's released them and then we've all knitted them. And I mean, that's wonderful, but you don't kind of have a place where everybody gets to talk about it, you know, at the same time or experience knitting it. It seems like a lot of people are knitting like the Kurta socks and they're all gushing about it, but it's separate, right? So one thing I love about test knitting is not just getting the knit right away, because I don't want to wait, but also just all the other people that are experiencing it at the same time. And that's just energizing, even in and of itself. So we did this. This was her first one where she actually said she invited a few people to knit it. And then it was so much fun to see where it went that she said she'd like to actually do that for ongoing patterns. So she put out a little call just asking for some people who generally like to test knit and would be up for these kinds of things. And I was like, yes, that's a hard yes on this end. So I've joined this crew and there are just these fantastic people in it. I think it's, again, one of those things that, you know, you put out the call into the universe and like the right people just come, like, because we just seem like it's a really cohesive group, even though we're all from across the world and very different backgrounds. Like we all did a little, it's now being held on Slack, and we did a little like quick bio and just the things that we said. You're like, oh my God, these are such interesting people and very different backgrounds, but we're all united in knitting and maybe also our desire to move our knitting along in terms of this recipe route as opposed to like just patterns. So the next one she quickly had, and I'm just going to remind you that Annalie's patterns have a purpose. So they're beautiful, but they also are purposeful. She thinks, what do I need? She's a very outdoorsy person, does a lot of camping. She lives in Sweden. So, you know, wool is going to be part of that. It seems to me that they go in the winter. So there's a lot of like, I'm sure it gets cold. And so she's always thinking like, what do I need? So the most recent one is this. It's called Lagom. Lagom, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that well. Which means it's actually similar to Adekvat that Caroline had a colorway. Lagom is like, I am interpreting it as just right. Like kind of like maybe even the Tao, like the idea of like not too much, not too little, just right. It's Lagom is how they say it. So it's just like that thing that you need. It's just right. So it's a little cowl slash neck warmer slash scarf. And when Annalie was designing this, she had talked about the thing that I don't like, it is similar. I don't like about cowls is that they're often very loose. So I love the look of them, but when I wear them in the cold, I'm like, I don't know how to, like, I'm freezing. So I will go with a scarf instead because I can wrap a scarf all the way around me. But a scarf isn't always ideal because it has to then tuck into your coat. And I don't always want it tucked into my coat. And then a shawl, similar thing, you can wrap it around, but then it's all over your shoulders and maybe that's not what you want with particular coats. So this is a pattern that was designed specifically to be worn in those times where you want it to be very high up, but not get in your way. And you can see that this is one where it sits. Now, mine has stretched out a little, so the next time I make it, I'm gonna make it even tighter because again, you knit top down and you pull it over your head to make it the perfect size. So at first, it just sat, like, look at that.
Yeah,
and you can just like, hello, when it's freezing, you just, you know, it's me under here. Like that's how I see it. And yeah, so you have this, and just even wearing it right now, I'm like, oh, it's again wrapping me in this like just space that feels right. And it's the right size for my body because I literally just knit it. So the recipe shows you how to kind of knit it down and then you can play with things. I made mine very basic. It's just garter. She gives 3 options also for how to join it, whether you want to do garter in the round, garter flat, seam it up, garter with short rows. It's amazing, right? I know. I was like gonna do the short rows and I'm like, no, right now I just want this thing on my neck. So I did the garter in the round. Yeah, so which meant purling. So basically you knit one round, you purl another, which sometimes I really like. I sometimes really like purls. And then the increases are with little yarn overs. So you end up with these eyelets that come all the way down. And at the bottom, I felt like I kind of wanted to reference that. And so I just stuck eyelets right here. And then I had to do a super stretchy bind off to make it kind of lie flat. So I did Jenny's super stretchy bind off. Well named. Yeah, so you end up with this just like, again, this is one of those knits. I finished it yesterday and I've been just wearing it all the time because look at how easy, like you just throw it on and it's perfect. And then if it gets, she was like, you know, sometimes you want it to be really up here around your jaw line, but then sometimes you get hot. So all you have to do is fold it, right? And now it's open. So now I'm nice and it's nice and airy. And if I didn't want that, I could just put it back. And then she has a video, you're gonna be able to see this. She just does it in a zillion ways. So one way she did that I just loved was then she flipped it up. Let's see if I can do this.
Oh my God, it's so
As
cute.
like a cute little, she does this so much better than me. And she tucked it in and it became this cute little like hat. Oh, I'm not doing that very well.
I feel like you should be in the woods right now. Like I look
Right?
at you and I'm like, you should be in the woods.
I'm like a little like
Like a
Red
sheep.
Riding Hood or something. Or like, you know, like Hansel and Gretel, like off, you know, getting around the witches. Anyway, I loved it. And then, yeah, and then she was like, sometimes you also, maybe your neck is cold, like the back of your neck, right?
That is a classic I want to be hugged place.
Yes.
For me, back of neck.
Back of neck. And now because you've made it, it's really nice and tight in exactly the place that you want.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I cannot wait to knit this thing.
You have to. It took me, again, I don't know, probably something like 5 hours, like maybe less.
So
Easy.
you knit this in, can you tell me about wool and needle size?
Yes, so this is in Nutiden, which is why I'm hugging it as I'm like wearing it. This is in Botaniska, which is a absolutely glorious, I know, this is not gonna pick it up, I don't think. Oh my God, no, it's not. I'm gonna have to take better pictures. This colorway has every color in it. It's green, it has yellow, it has red. Oh, look, you've been knitting with it too.
Oh, no,
do you see? I know it's not coming up. You'll just have to trust us. This is again, like Liv, it's a magical colorway, I will say. And it was what I brought. It was the color I brought with me on my trip. And so I was able to make this, and I just couldn't wait. I like cast it on as soon as the recipe came out, and I'll just wear
double-stranded.
Double-stranded on size. I did it on size 8, US 8, so 5.5, I think. And 5.0, because she did them on 9s, 5.5, and my 9s were being used by another whip that's still languishing upstairs because I've gotten distracted from it. So I didn't have it, so I did it a little bit tighter. So mine's, but you know what I actually really like for my knitting style, I like the fabric that it's made. It's nice and squishy. And again, that's that piece of knitting, right, where you decide what your fabric is, how light. You could do this thing in a fingering weight and have a nice kind of thing for springtime. I wanted it to be dense enough that it was going to be nice and warm in the cold.
You know what I'm wondering? I'm just looking here. It's like, you know how it's sort of stretched out?
Yes.
Now it's back together.
You're right. See? Perfect. It is back together.
now you have the thing, and then you get kind of the cowl look, right?
You do. Yes, exactly. You have to see the video. She did it 1,000 ways, and I wish I did my I wish my hair thing did it the way she did, because it was the cutest. Oh, it was just amazing. Everybody should knit it. It takes no time. And again, just think, this is just a base of all the things you can do. People were putting like baubles down the center and around the bottom. Annalie did I was thinking also like a cable down this middle. This is done 2 stitches, but there's no reason it has to be 2 stitches. You can do whatever you want. So you can make like 4 stitches and do a cable that kind of meets itself, and it's just so many.
How much yarn do you think that you use? Like
that?
1 plate, half a plate?
Oh, half, probably half. 60 or
I'd say
70
a little
grams.
bit more than half.
60 or
looking at it.
70 maybe grams. I was pulling, and you're right, I could easily actually weigh it.
We'll weigh it and we'll put it in the show notes.
But yeah, just I can't say enough about it. Everybody should knit this. Again, free pattern.
I feel like I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm gonna fade one.
Like you should
think
try
about
this on.
scraps. Like think about all of those little leftovers,
Yes.
and you could do like a scrappy fade.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Right?
This is cozy. Like
God.
you're just cozy embodied.
Yeah, these knits that I happen to have right now are just absolute coziness factor. Oh, it looks so beautiful.
I hike a lot and I feel like this is gonna be so functional. I'm so excited.
Yes.
I'm so excited. And yeah.
And there will
Thanks,
be
Emily.
loads. Yes, thank you. And there will be loads more of things because I'm part of this testing group and I want to literally knit everything she comes out. There's another new thing coming out soon. I'm not saying anything about that one. But it's good.
Yeah.
So, what's your next? Another FO?
Yeah. Another FO, because we're talking about things that you need and things that are functional. And after all of my top-down round yoke and raglan pullovers, I recognized that what I really needed was a cardigan.
Oh, I need a cardigan too.
So, actually, you're gonna put one on, you're gonna put on the other.
Oh, yay! Oh, yes. Okay, you know what? I'm going to stand up so I can get my, Oh, we're just going to leave you again.
We do this a lot.
I love it.
Okay, so this is the Miles shirt jacket by Ozetta. And this is possibly my most worn knit
Whoa.
in the past, 4 months. Which you would think is surprising because we're in Ontario and I've, for the most part, been in Ontario during the summer season. But this is just the most amazing cardigan ever. So
look at that. Look at that.
So this detail is what I fell in love with.
Yes.
This sort of short row high-low hem. I don't really know
well,
how to talk about
it's
it.
literally a shirt, like a dress shirt.
Yeah, so shackets are really in style, and rather than buying a shacket from the store, I was like, I'm gonna knit this. So this is knit top down, back and forth. It's kind of like a drop shoulder construction in a way. This is also a design detail that I adore. This just line.
Oh yeah.
And then you knit down, then you knit the what is this called? The button band, and then this is the juiciest thing, is this double knit collar.
Yes.
Which is, again, see, it's like holding that part of my neck that I really want to have covered. So I knit this, surprise, surprise, in Nutiden yarn in the colorway Hofta. Hofta was a colorway that I would say in the history of Nutiden yarns, which every colorway is composed of a different blend of Swedish heritage breeds, and so there are different sort of characteristics. I would say Hofta was one that was very drapey and airy and quite open. So I held it double and knit it on US 8s, so
Nice.
5.0, and it created this really open and airy fabric.
It's beautiful.
Which was my go-to in the evenings in the summer. I just carried this with me everywhere, wore it all the time, and I just adore this color, actually, like this.
It's beautiful.
I feel like somehow it goes with everything.
It's one of those neutrals, isn't it?
It's one of those neutrals, it's a neutral, but it's not a neutral.
Gold.
It's gold, it's summery, and I
your hair,
absolutely love it. And the other thing is that, so I've never knit a cardigan in a traditional way, in which sort of you go top down, you go back and forth, and you have to do a button band. The only cardigan I have knit is the circle cardigan.
Oh, yes.
Which maybe we'll show next time. which is not knit in that sort of construction. And so I was like, this opened this whole like, what do you do with buttons?
I know.
And how do you work with buttons? And how do you choose what buttons you
Look
need?
at those buttons.
And because this was such an airy fabric, this whole knit after blocking, including the buttons, is less than 300 grams.
Wow.
Of Nutiden yarn.
Wow. And
because
again, for
it was
about
so
a size 1 or 2?
It's the smallest size.
Smallest.
Yes, thank you. And because it was so light, I was looking at all these, like, I fell into the world of like buttons, and I was looking at all these like ceramic buttons and wooden buttons and leather buttons. And I was worried that it was going to sort of like drag down the button band. And then I went to my local yarn store, which is Hand Knit Yarn in Hamilton, and they had, this is like one of those universe perfection moments, they had the 4 buttons, which is the number of buttons that you need, in the right dimension for the pattern, because it's really helpful when you knit a button band to know what's the size proportion, like what size button is going to meet the proportion.
Look at these.
And I think that this is my favorite thing about this knit. I mean, I love
really
the
does
knit.
make it. It's amazing.
But it's kind of funny because, well, what do you see? What do you see in the button? Because what I see is it looks like runic to me.
Yes,
it looks
I was
like
thinking the
it's
same
not
thing.
actually a rune, but that sort of that geometric sort of shape.
Yes.
And the colorway Hofta, its story relates to sunshine through sort of they're not wheat sheaves, but you know, thinking about that sort of golden color, that's what it evoked for me. So it kind of looks like a sun.
Yes, it does.
Right?
But also like a snowflake too.
Yes. So when it's
cold.
yeah.
Love it.
I did not see the snowflake. So I didn't see the snowflake at all. I'm like so happy about my like sunshine runic buttons, and I put them on, and my dear partner was like, "Oh, you put snowflakes on your sweater." And I was like, yes, I did. And so now whenever I do the buttons, it makes me laugh because it's a reminder of like our perspective, right?
Yes.
What matters is your perspective and like what you see in the yarn. And so whether you're knitting with like Nutiden or another yarn, it's like taking the time to notice what the yarn evokes in you, and then recognize that every single time you get to knit it or every single time you put on the garment, it's like you get to connect with whatever that is again, right? So
I love it. Also, can I say, I also love that something that can look like the sun can also look like a snowflake at the same time. So these two things that might seem very separate, or something that literally is like wheat and the sun, could be worn in the middle of winter. Like, these two opposites can come together.
So I love this, and I loved it so much that I was like, you know what? I really want a second one.
Yeah.
So I made a second one.
These.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
In use.
Yeah.
And the reason I knit a second one was also because of function. In the sense that, well, I'm wearing like pants right now, but in the summer there were times where I had this and I was wearing shorts and I felt like it was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. Like right now in the fall, this is my perfect sort of throw on to take the dog for a walk cardigan, but I wanted one that was shorter. And so that's what I did.
Oh, it is shorter.
It is shorter. So, I mean, Carmen and I are differently sized, but you can just see that one's shorter.
Oh, I love it. I love it, both of them.
One that was cropped a little bit closer to the body.
And was this on purpose? Bracelet
No,
length?
I think my sleeve length is your bracelet length.
That makes sense.
But yes, also it was like a little bit shorter. And this one to me, if you take this off for a second.
I know, I'm just a little like not sure how.
Or I can put it on. Do you want me to put it on?
No, it's okay.
It looks to me like a jacket, like a little, like this one is more like casual, like, you know, throw on a shirt jacket. But that one, because use is a sturdier, it's a yarn that has a little more body and a little more structure. It came out looking like a little
for sure
cropped jacket, which I also adore.
Super cute. These may not exactly match. I might not normally put these ones on together, but.
And also, if you turn and show the shoulder, I feel like the shoulder seam is really nice in this one.
Oh, look
you
at
can really
that.
see it.
Oh, look at it.
Those
Oh, they
little
really.
details.
Look how beautiful. Like, really thinking about that, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this.
For me, I can see myself knitting this in many colors and many versions, just because I think that it's such a wardrobe staple. I love the collar. And I just think it is timeless. Like, in a way, I think, the shacket is a bit of a trend, or has been a trend. But I do think that it is something that I think is beautiful. It has classic, a little twist, and is really functional as well. So highly, highly recommend. I did make 2 modifications to the pattern. So in the pattern, the hems are bound off in the pattern with tubular bind off, which can be done with Nutiden, but I don't love tubular cast-ons or anything like just the whole Kitchener thing is not something that makes me happy. So I substituted it with an Icelandic bind off.
Ooh, fancy.
Which also is stretchy. It gives you that sort of stretchy quality that you need for sort of ribbed edges. And it has now become one of my favorite cast off sort of methods. So I cast off with the Icelandic instead of tubular. And then with this one, I significantly cropped the body, the body length. What else am I gonna say? So I notice now as I'm looking at the camera that the pattern is not meant for the front plackets to be longer than the back plackets. So I don't know if that was like a blocking thing or if I bungled it somehow.
No, I think
or the way that it's sitting on my body.
I think, yeah, because it looks pretty good.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
But I did notice that sort of difference, or I wanted a bit more of a scoop in the back. So when I knit the second version, I did more short rows in the back to exaggerate kind of the scoop.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right?
Yep.
So, yeah. That's the Miles shirt jacket by.
Oh, I'm excited because I've actually really wanted to knit this one. So I'm now I get to see that I definitely need to knit it.
Do you think you're gonna knit it short or long?
I think if I do it twice, I will do what you did. If I do it once, I'm going to do it longer, just because I think for me that'll be more, because now I'm thinking about wearability. And I think for me, that will be nice. I like when it gets cold, I like when things cover my hips. A short, like even getting into the car, I find sometimes, like if you're the back of your back, if the thing rides up, and like you put it against, my seats are they're not cloth seats, so they can be really cold. So that would actually cover that up really nicely. So yes, I think I would start there, but I might have to do 2.
I think my third version, which I'm planning at some point, I want to do this longer version, but with I might actually hold 3 strands, which I
so really like an outdoor
create like a jacket, because this is kind of like the summer version. That one I feel like looks really cute, exactly as you're wearing it with like jeans and a tank top to kind of go out in the fall. But but I do want like this like extra cozy version because this was really airy. So 3 strands or just like a thicker colorway,
or a smaller needle size,
but endless options.
Okay, you know what, I'm actually gonna take these off because I like this whole outfit, but this doesn't go.
I also feel like this would make really good color work. Pink and green.
I mean, you can't go wrong with pink and green.
Yeah.
Especially these kinds. These are just like, they're so complicated, each of these. Like, it's a pink, but it has a zillion colors. Like, literally, when Caroline made this colorway, she showed it before, and it was just like every color of the rainbow. And then it became this. I'll show it one more time, but I don't know if you can see all of these. Oh, no. Wow.
There's pinks and yellows and like magentas. There's
blues
even
were even there, greens.
So
like it was
a really
everything
fun thing to look at. We love heathered colorways. Like we love the surprise of something that looks, you know, far away, like one color, and then as you get closer and as you're knitting, if you're able to like look at your knitting, that you're like, oh, there's a pop here and oh, there's a pop there. And
I was just gonna say, I think that that's the delight, like where you're knitting and then you're just like, look at this there's a red, like there will be a fiery red, just the tiniest little spot, and it just brings this little bit of joy, like where you're like, oh, look at that. And like you just watch it disappear, kind of like if you're in a river and you're watching like a leaf like that's going down, and you watch it do its little thing, whatever, it gets on a current or it hits a rock or whatever, and you're experiencing that, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's somewhere in here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this will, I don't know if this happens to other knitters, but it's like, I'm not very good at knitting in season. No, sorry. No, I am good at knitting season.
You need to have it cold to knit?
Like, I don't want to knit with autumn colors or autumn things until autumn hits.
And
then like when my autumn knit is actually finished, it's winter.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, but like this.
I keep putting this back on because I actually just am adoring these two things together. Like I just want, and I had to take the gloves off because now I'm in a happy place. This is a good fall outfit to me.
Yeah, it is such a good fall outfit. Whereas I feel like I'm still in summer because I'm still in blues.
Oh.
I'm still in blues.
Oh, like in terms of like wearing, like what you want to wear?
What I want to, all of my whips, many of my whips are in the blue family.
Oh.
But it got, like yesterday was the first like crisp fall day, and I was like, where's Hutton?
Where's rust? Where's
I need rust right
Where
now.
are all the warm colors right now?
Yeah.
So, I love it.
What else do we have?
Do you have any, do
I have one
FOs?
more.
I love that we said we weren't going to follow the typical order of things,
but we
do. But, we're doing it today. Don't think it will always happen that way. You never know. You never know.
I have one more whip.
Whip or FO?
Whip.
Oh, whip. Mm-hmm. But you have other whips, right? Don't you? Oh.
I have one new whip, and then I have progress on my KAL things. So I would love to start with your whip, though.
Oh.
Can you talk about your whip?
Yes, we can. I need to take a breath. So before I pulled my whip up, I had the great fortune of going to Knit City, Vancouver. And again, it's just universal magic energy because we had this house exchange set for Vancouver. We're going, and I think it was like 2 or 3 days before we left, and I was like, hey, when's Knit City, Vancouver? And wasn't it the day before we left? So we left on the Sunday. Saturday was Knit City, and I was like, I'm going to Knit City. Like, this is amazing. No idea of what knowing I needed nothing, but, open to seeing like what might come up. Before going, our lovely friend Loretta from the Knit My Way Home podcast was saying, what you need to do though is to go see my friend Brittany from Crux Fibers. And we had like connected on, because Brittany did this, which I think you're going to talk about after, but Brittany has made an incredible hat with our KAL motif. So I had kind of connected with her on Instagram via that, but obviously it was just at the beginning of that. And I had, in Knit City, you had to book in blocks. So there was like a morning session and there was an afternoon session. So the morning session was 10 to 1, and then the afternoon session was 2 to 5. That was also the day of our knit event. Like, it was our knit night, but it happened in the morning, and it was at 10 o'clock, and it was so much fun. And I was going to do it from outside the doors of it, decided maybe that's not very responsible. Maybe I should stay home with good Wi-Fi and actually like computer. So long story short, end up chatting there for so long that I ended up getting to Knit City at 12 o'clock. So I had 1 hour for my first session, but I knew I had my second. So I I didn't get to see Brittany the first, so I was there and I went around and I hadn't gotten to Crux Fibers yet, but I'd seen all these other things. Beautiful, like beautiful yarns. I am in a phase, as we've talked about, of really, superwash is not what's having my heart right now. So with hand dyers, it's a lot of superwash, because that's how, like, the taking off the scales is what allows the wool to really receive the dye. So you can get just gorgeous, vibrant colors with superwash. So generally, you'll find that a lot of people, I find that a lot of hand dyers are doing a lot of superwash. It might have a little bit of a section of non-superwash, but so I'm walking around going, hey, look at this. Like, these are like absolutely beautiful, but I can resist. I can resist because I have a lot of skeins in my stash from before when I was really into it. So, feeling good. Go out and have my lunch, and then I come back in and I'm like, I might even just see these people, and maybe I'm not even gonna get anything. And then I went into Crux Fibers. Oh, Jackie, I'm sure you guys know by now that we are completely authentic in our joy and love for things. When I say to you, I could buy absolutely every single skein in their stall I wanted and needed. And I didn't get this because I got other things. But Brittany somehow has found it's non-superwash. I don't know if she has any superwash, to be honest, in it. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But she has colors that are there was a coral, almost like a fluorescent coral. And then a color like this that I almost bought, like these. I know that was what we had been talking about. Oh yeah, earlier, I guess in the podcast, we were saying colors that that was when I was just going to buy. I know for myself how many skeins I generally need for a sweater. And then color work will be about one skein for me if I'm just doing a yoke. So I felt very confident. I grabbed that. I was immediately going to get that. Then I kept walking in the stall. And in its own section was her, what she calls low mileage wool. And I feel like I can't even explain this well. So we're going to put her in the show notes too. Go to her website. It explains what this is, but Brittany knows a shepherdess who has a flock of sheep. She knows the shepherdess. The shepherdess loves her sheep. Just started following her. Oh, she has my heart. She's a kindred spirit.
Sierra's
oh
amazing.
My God. So Brittany gets her wool. I don't know how it's actually milled, but it's milled in Canada. So this is all Canadian. So shepherdess is Canadian. The sheep are Canadian. It's milled in Canada, I'm pretty sure.
It is milled in Canada and Wellington.
In Wellington, thank you.
Yeah.
Wellington, what?
Ontario.
Ontario!
Yeah.
And she is in...
Yukon.
She in the... No, so Brittany's in the Yukon and Sierra's...
That I'm not sure.
I think she's somewhere else because they're going to go visit. Anyway, I don't know all the information. All I can tell you is that this is wool. These sheep are so beautifully taken care of. And everyone that's touching this wool has love in their hearts. You can just tell. It goes to Brittany, and Brittany has created, so she's, I guess, skeins it. I don't know how the process is. Brittany has these things. I'm not being very helpful. But she has what she calls this low mileage wool. And she has it in a bunch of different natural colors because they're coming from different sheep. And each sheep is the same, plural and singular, I guess.
Yeah.
Each sheep has its own colors. And so, you get, okay. I'm stretching this out.
So good.
I'm not going to show this yet because I want to show them together. But she has a bunch of different colorways, and because of this she had the brilliant idea to make a Find Your Fade shawl by Andrea Mowry. If you haven't seen this one, it's a very long kind of, that would be great because of course I didn't think to grab a picture of this. A long shawl that fades in Andrea Mowry's version. It's a lot of speckled yarn and you fade into all these other colors. Brittany has done this with her beautiful. With her different colorways that she's got in these sheep. Okay, how am I going to show this? Should I show it like this and then? So I've started, and I can't put it down, people. All right, so this is the beginning of the Find Your Fade with the low mileage wool. It starts with, I should have gotten the sheep's names. I don't have them with me. We'll put them in. This is obviously a black sheep. It's fading into this beautiful dark gray, which will then fade into these beauties. So into a medium gray, another medium, a little bit lighter, and finally into this beautiful white, natural white. This shawl was sitting there. So all of these skeins are on a tower. I'm already loving it. Jackie, can you just hold up, just so you can see the drape on this? Okay, there's no alpaca. This is 100% wool. Actually, yeah.
Gotland crossbreed.
And each one will be different. This one's also a 100% Gotland crossbreed, BFL and Dorset. This is from Ray. Rose and Frost are the sheepies. This one, it's, another one, 100% Gotland, Max and Vivian.
Emily and Barbara.
This one's 75% Gotland, 25% Coopworth/Dorset, Mick and Mabel. Mick. Sorry. So I'm looking at this already, just going, I feel like I'm gonna need these. Then draped over it is the Find Your Fade shawl that's just sitting there. And of course, I ask if I can put it around my neck.
Because Brittany knit one. And so if you go to her Instagram, she has a reel where she shows her finished object.
I wonder if we can link that one, because I found it hard to find it, and then she sent it. You're going to see it and want it, but I can just tell you, whatever you think you want, when you put this around your neck, I immediately, I was like, well, I can't buy everything, so you can take those other skeins because I'm buying this kit. Because it needs to be on me. You wrap it around you, and again, it's that, it's funny. Again, it's this physical heaviness. These blankets, they've got heavy blankets that people sleep with because it's comforting. This is like that. You put it around your shoulders and you just feel so secure. And Jackie, can you talk about what this feels like?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So it's really drapey. There is no prickle. None. It is maybe some of the softest. It's like, I'm going to be really bold and I'm going to say that this feels as soft as Surrey, but less smooth.
Yes. I concur.
Like Surrey, I'm actually going to go as far to say that this is how it feels to hold like a merino fingering with one strand of mohair if you could remove the prickliness from mohair.
Yes, I agree with that. That's a beautiful way to say it.
And
with a silkiness in it.
It's silky, and there is a rusticity to it where I feel like you can just feel the essence of the naturalness in the fiber. There's wool that's really beautiful. Like recently I knit with, silk mohair, and it's gorgeous, but I feel like I'm one step away from nature. This, much like Nutiden yarn, much like, and we have a preference of this kind of thing, just like, can you touch the nature? Can you feel the nature in the wool? And
can you wrap it around yourself? And can you have it right against your skin? Like, I want this right against me, wrapped. I touched it and was like, I need it. Like, not need it like I need it because it's so beautiful. I need it because my soul needs this. Like, there's a healing that I need through this somehow. I'm not even sure what it is, but I know I need it. And I can't put the knit down because I just want it on me. Yeah. And it's delightful. Again, this is one of those ones, it runs through your hands and it feels like you're healing even as you're knitting. Oh my God, I can't say enough about this.
So in our entire yarny friendship, I think this is the most excited, moved, enamored I've ever witnessed you in terms of like yarn and pattern and experience.
Yes.
And I'm curious because we've talked a little bit about the story. Brittany also talks about the story of the yarn in her podcast, and you can listen to her speak about it in sort of the first person, like her first person experience with it. But were you aware of the story of the yarn when you picked up the object?
No.
Okay.
None.
Yeah.
Zero.
And I think that's
any
amazing.
Research, of course.
But I think that it's amazing that, you know, on some level, if you let yourself take a breath, take a moment, be in your body, feel the yarn. I think that everything, whether it's yarn or a flower or a tree or your food or your coffee, like, we can dial into that energy or that feeling that is at the core essence of everything that we touch.
Yes.
And everything that exists. And, you know, that's reflective of my worldview and my encounters with yoga and the world and the philosophy of yoga. But I do think that there is we have the capacity to tap into that, whatever we want to call it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And the wool to me really speaks to this ethos that we've encountered through Nutiden wool, that you've also begun to encounter in other places as you've begun to travel and encounter other wools, of falling in love with wool that is made with intention, with care for animals, with care for the environment. And ultimately, I think the other thing that I really connect with when I feel this wool and when I've spoken to Brittany is just a deep love and passion and meaning making, you know, in the wool. Like, there's a sense of tremendous soul level, heart level, sense of meaning in tending to a flock, in figuring out what I expect is not a easy process of how to create fiber that's low mileage, you know, Canadian fiber, using Canadian, working with other Canadian producers to create something. And I really feel like that's really alive here.
Yes.
And
yes, I could not have said it better. That is beautiful. And I love listening to your experience of it, because you weren't there. So I just wanted to know, what do you think of it? And it was so similar, you know, like, I don't have words for it. I just know. And again, I mean, who knows? Well, I can't imagine this not being what everybody would want, but I think that maybe it's also something I really need myself. And I just feel like I feel emotional even just thinking about it. Yeah. So it's amazing. And I do want to also say that Brittany, and going along with what you're saying, like, Brittany is a beautiful being. Like, you are, you know, oh my God. Like, I felt so connected with her, and I was like, I don't even know her. Like, I really barely, because as I said, I didn't do any research beforehand. So I knew about the hat that she made, and I love that. You know, I knew that Loretta loved her, and that's already great. But she's an amazing person, as is her husband, who was also there. And he is a very, like, cool, you know, there's just a cool vibe about that person too. So I wish they were closer. I would want to, like, go out with these people. These Yukoners, too far away. You're so amazing, and way up at the, you know,
in a
western
beautiful
part of
in
the gorgeous part of Canada.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this will be, I wouldn't be surprised if this is done by our next podcast, even though it's going to be another 500 grams or so of knitting, because I just don't want to put it down, and I want it around me as soon as possible.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, and if you want needles, it's size 4s.
Yeah.
Single.
Size 4 needles, and once it's all knit up, there'll be notes on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. There's also something really, really precious, that each skein comes with the names of the sheep. And as I was talking to Brittany about the availability of this, because I was not in Knit City with the moment that Carmen expressed to me how she felt about the wool, I was like, I feel that I want to experience this also. So I was having a conversation with her about it, and she's literally talking about, okay, and so there's like, yep, so your kit comes with this sheep and this sheep, and she knows all the sheep, and I'm just like, it's just amazing. And it's amazing to have the opportunity to encounter people who are doing such meaningful work through this craft.
Yes. And thank you for also mentioning the kit, because I did also want to say that, so Brittany was down from the Yukon in Vancouver, and I guess has needed to ship, I know you don't want to put it down, I know the feeling. She needs to ship all of her stuff back. So actually she's waiting to get it back, but there are kits still available. I don't think there are very many, but there are kits available. So if you are feeling drawn to doing this, the same kind of thing, there's an option there that it will be up on our website, I think early next week, I think is what she's estimating.
Yeah, so she, everything that she has available from Knit City, she still has to sort of stock and take photos and then put up on her website. And because the shipment date is currently maybe Friday, it's been delayed a couple of times, whenever the shipment arrives, plus a couple of days. But we'll probably, when the shop is live, we'll do our best to share that on our various social channels, because this is just so special.
Should experience it, really.
Everyone who feels
yes
really drawn to experience it, trust that life is going to give you the opportunity to. And if you're watching this episode, you know, weeks later, months later, or you're really moved by the story, but the yarn can't make it into your hands, I invite you to choose, if it feels right for you, the perspective that you trust that, of course it's about Brittany, of course it's about Sierra, who is the shepherdess, but more than that, I think it's about the coming together of Brittany and Sierra and the sheep and the Yukon and our living in Canada and Carmen and me. It's about that sort of the magic of when things come together in perfect timing. And so I hope, with all of the conversation, all the chat about yarn and the stories around yarn, but not really about yarn, that we've offered today, that it will inspire you to find your own version of that moment. Because it might not be with this yarn, it might not be with Nutiden, it could very easily be with something else, but can you be open and trust that if you're present enough to yourself and open to the possibilities of interacting with the craft in this way, that we all have these moments.
Oh,
so
I love that.
But I'm really excited to have my moment with this yarn as well.
Well, we're very similar spirits. So I mean, if something's hitting me, it very likely probably will hit you in a similar way. Yeah. So it was a good call. Okay. Now I'm exhausted. I just emotionally, it's so beautiful.
You know, our craft can do this, right? That's the nature of art, and that's what I love about art, is its capacity to touch us in really deep and unexpected places.
Yes.
Right? And I have some people in my life who are not knitters or yarn people who managed to stumble upon this podcast, who were just like, you really love this. And I was like, yeah.
No, I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of things that I love, I want to show one whip. So this is, so I'm test knitting a shawl for Inese, and this design that she put together is something that, again, leaped out and grabbed me. I'm just gonna pull up her version so that you can see it. So this pattern is currently in testing. I don't know when it's going to be published. The testing deadline is the end of October, and then I don't know what happens after that. But
it's so gorgeous.
Showing. This is the Sunweavers Shawl by Inese. And the moment that I saw it, I was like, it just spoke to me.
Yep.
And I didn't know anything about the details. And I sent Inese a really, we're gonna call it over-friendly puppy message, in which I was like, what is this? When is this? I would like to knit it. I'm going to be traveling. I'm out of the country from this date and this date. And so like, can you let me know, A, is there any chance that I could test knit it? And B, like just enough information so that I can take my stash with me to a different Polynesia where there's no Wi-Fi and
across the world.
Into
the middle of the ocean.
Into the middle of the ocean because I just feel so drawn to this. And Inese very lovingly was like, yes, and here's the information. And so I'm testing this shawl.
This is the first time I'm seeing it, by the way.
So I'm not all that far. But this is, I'm going to show it to you in like a particular way.
It's so you.
Okay. So this is my version.
It's beautiful.
Surprise, surprise. I'm knitting it in Nutiden yarn.
Yep.
The colorways that you see here are Stardust, which is the gray. This like dusty blue is Intervall, which has little pops of pink. Then this pink is Villgott. So, those of you who have been watching this podcast for any length of time will probably be completely unsurprised by the choice of colors.
Yes.
And it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But what I fell in love with in this particular shawl is this motif, which you can see, but I was like, but this is the part of the shawl that I fell in love with. And I'm not sure that this color combination is bringing as much attention to it as I wanted to. So I agonized, I messaged Inez, I took a poll in the Slack testing group being like, what should I do? And so thank you, Kelly, for like talking me down from the ledge, and Carmen for talking me down from the ledge of being like, I have to rip the entire thing out.
I know, and I'm sure you can imagine, we're looking at a picture of this, we're looking at this going, I'm sorry, what is the problem? Like, it's absolutely spectacular. So it wasn't hard for us to be like, let's wait before you rip it. Let's just talk this through.
And I think it's beautiful. Like, I love that it's beautiful, but you know, you fall in love with something.
Yes.
And you
to
feel
trust
like
it.
And so Inez gave me the ability. I'm like, if there are any designers who like, you know, are calling for a test knit, you should probably just always say no to me because I never test
the way. You should say yes all the time. Look at the love and the energy that goes into it.
I can't knit a pattern as written, as you guys have already figured out.
Well, you can't let something be not what it's meant to be.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And so I have gone off book.
Wow. Jackie.
And I've added in one more color.
Oh, that's
so this
really
is
beautiful.
IRF.
Oh my god. Innan Regnet Faller.
Yes,
something.
Innan Regnet Faller.
Faller.
And I'm really, really happy.
Jackie, it's gorgeous.
With how it looks.
Look at it.
It's a little, I mean, not out of my comfort zone. I mean, we're still muted. We're still in the grayish family. But I just love, I love it. And I do love sort of this juxtaposition between the more like watery, soft version of it and then having this like pop of a stripe. And so there's more color work to come in the shawl. And I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with it, except that I think I'm going to be including both of these two colors.
Oh.
So, yeah.
It is pulling out, like the blue, you can, like, it's almost like it looks like a gray, like when I look at it here, but when you see it up close, still looking gray. You're just going to have to trust, and actually you can't even see the pink with this. Maybe that's a bit better. This is actually such a deep blue. It's so Innan Regnet Faller means before the storm, before the rain, before the storm, before the storm, because it's the storm clouds, that blue you get in the sky, and it really, I think there's something about having it with the pink and the gray along with it. Oh my god! So wait a minute, is Interval or what?
So this one in the back is Interval.
It is. So it looks gray in compared to this.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by this is it's a blue.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And I mean, I don't know if you were able to see when Jackie held it up close, but this is so Inez. Like, look at the detail, the twisted stitches that just like dance along into seamlessly transitioning into these like color work and then up. Like her patterns are a delight.
This is a joy to knit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an intricate knit in the sense that, it takes time, which is why I was really grateful that my yarn friends were like, don't rip it out.
Yes.
But I have to say, it is an absolute joy to knit. I'll talk more about it maybe when it's done and when it's published. But I wanted to show it, one, because I'm so in love with it, two, to sort of share that sometimes we have an idea and our ideas don't pan out. And then we have to learn to sort of move with it and pivot and we'll see.
It's amazing. And you can already tell how light it is. Like, this is single strand, I'm guessing.
It's single stranded. I'm knitting on a US 2, so 2.75.
Again, why you
millimeters.
probably didn't want to pull all that out, all that work. It's not nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so pretty. I can't wait to see what you're going to end up doing. Like, if you're going to bring this one back for the next or something, or like if you're going to keep on or keep shifting it.
I think I probably am going to shift it. Like, I want to, for balance, I'm going to bring this again. It's just a question of when and how. And I mean, the blue's looking pretty bold, but I think it's so cohesive.
It is. It's so gorgeous. It's so beautiful. I'm so glad you did that.
And then I brought something for you, Carmen, related to this.
I somehow benefited from this this knit.
So I was in French Polynesia and sort of like on vacation / working, and the days were quite long. And so I sat down with my knitting long after the sun had set under fluorescent lights and realized after a couple of days that the one that I had started was not in the colorway that I had actually chosen. Now, it's subtle, but it mattered to me. It mattered to me, and so I have a little beginning of a shawl
that we just can't let go to waste, right? That would be just...
So this is Frusetvatten, Stardust, and Villgott. And I mean, I was knitting and I was like, this is so beautiful, but I don't think it's quite right for me. This is so beautiful, but this is not quite right for me. But I was so certain when I swatched and when I sent Inez the little picture of the colors that I was using that this was like a beautiful color combo. And then, thank you, Kelly, and also Carmen. As I showed her this, she's like, it's the colors that I put together for Romantic and Whimsical. In
our little IG live when we were doing Romantic and Whimsical, I literally put together Frusetvatten and Villgott.
Yeah.
And then to add the Stardust, which was in another one actually that I had pulled out because I loved. So look what I get to finish.
I mean, there's a lot of knitting there.
It's a lot of knitting.
There's
it's
a lot
worth
of
it.
knitting there.
Do you know, I wanted to do this test so badly.
Really?
Oh my God. I actually had, I had asked Inez, I was like, I don't know about the timing. Will I have time to be able to knit it? Because I won't be able to get back to my stash until the 25th. And she was like, it's a pretty intricate knit. Like, maybe we shouldn't. So I was like, I'll just have to knit it when it comes out. But look, I've already got things started. You know what? Maybe if I finish it by, well, I don't know if I can, between the two of them. Well, I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking. By the way, did you just pull this?
I did just pull it.
Can I just show you, like, Nutiden again? Like, she just pulled her needles out and look at them just staying like that. Oh, love this stuff.
So,
woo!
That's my whip. This is taking all of my knitting time. And it's very happily taking all of my knitting time because, I mean, come on.
It's so gorgeous. It's so worth it. I mean, I don't know if, we've talked about the different whips that we have, right? So, and I think a lot of people have this kind of feeling of like, I love to have something that's very simple that I can just pick up and knit at any time. And funny enough, we were talking about that MPO that I have, which is like intricate cable sweater, is actually one of those for me. Like Jackie was like, that isn't what normally, usually you're talking to stockinette, but it is almost like that because I know exactly where I am in the pattern at all times. And it's either you're just knitting around or you're doing a cable pattern, and you completely can read your knitting. So it's just so easy. So I love that. I think it would be for anybody. It really is just an amazing knit. But then so sometimes I want that to be sitting there as an option for when I'm like doing something that I just need I'm taking the kids to something and I'm going to have to be paying attention, but not quite those kinds.
And not have to reference a chart and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Right?
And have to know exactly where I'm at and, but then sometimes I want something that's really a lot. And I don't know if this is a lot, but it feels.
Wait a second. Okay. So this is the thing. Like, there's a chart that goes with it. And I most definitely do reference the chart, but it's not like I'm looking at it line by line.
Right.
There are sections, like it's actually really intuitive. I would say that, when I first started, I was looking at the chart, but as you can see, there's like the texture and it repeats over and over again. So I would say I was watching the chart here, and then when I got here, I was like, oh, I have a stretch of basically knits and purls before I have to like do something with it.
I love that.
So
little breathers.
They're breathers. Like, I think we talked about this with Inese's Annalise Autumn Shawl, which we also both knit, test knit. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is intentional, if Inese does this intentionally, or if it's just the way that her design brain works, but the rhythm of everything that I've knit that she has created, of course, yes, there's lace and there's color work on both sides, and there's also, twisted stitches and a little bit of cabling. Mm-hmm. But there is a delightful rhythm to it where I have yet to come to a place where I feel like, oh, this knit is a slog.
Yes.
And sometimes we get there, and that's usually when I sort of put something away and go back to it because I want my knitting to be enjoyable. But this is not like, it really actually is like a bit potato chippy, because you're just like, I want to get to the right. Oh, I want to get to
and like the next color, right? Like you're like, oh, there's always something changing, and oh yeah.
And I feel like I loved it here, and then like the more you add, the more I'm like, there's like what's coming next, and how's it gonna look next? So yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I get to knit it too earlier than expected.
All right. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, do you think? We've only talked for 2 hours.
Yes.
You know what? We're not even going to apologize, because I know there's a sense when you're doing this that you want to apologize for doing too long. But when I'm watching a knitting podcast, I'm not wanting it to be ending, because I'm sitting and knitting, and I always stop and start. Like I hardly ever have the time to watch through an entire knitting podcast. So it takes a while, but hey, I hope you're okay with it. If you're not, obviously, then you will fast
we
forward
hope that you paused and took a breather and like got a drink and or that you have made a significant amount of progress on whatever knitting you brought with you here.
Yes.
I do want to really quickly take some time to talk about the knit along.
Yes,
okay,
please.
So the Inspired by Ella knit along started on September 1st. It goes until January 31st of 2023. It is being hosted by ourselves, as well as Loretta Natalja from the Knit My Way Home podcast. And this is a free-for-all knit along in which there's this beautiful motif, and you're invited to use this motif, which comes in a chart that's available in a book as well as in a free pattern online, and we'll include all of this in the show notes below, to knit something which includes this motif. It can be anything and everything. And so what I wanted to mention is I wanted to talk about Lily from the Untangled Knitting podcast. Hi, Lily, who we love and who we met through her enthusiasm for this knit along. And I want to talk about something that she said in her most recent podcast episode, which I think was like the most perfect use of words ever, in which she called this knit along the Inspiration Waterfall.
Oh.
Okay, so all you have to do is knit something using this motif, and we are, what, 1 month in? Just a month in?
Just a month.
And
oh my God.
there are so many amazing things that people have finished,
mind-blowing
on, just like mind-blowing
Yep.
Versions of using this motif. So I wanted to, we've talked about Miss Evil Knits Annalie has made a recipe for a top-down sweater pattern, and we wanted to take a moment to talk about Brittany of Crooks Fibers, who we've talked about, and this amazing recipe / pattern that she has made for the cutest toque.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, and it includes the chart. It has really great instructions.
I know, I'm gonna have to knit that.
I'm gonna have to knit that too. So for those of you who are thinking about joining the knit along but are daunted by committing to a full sweater, there you have it. Another opportunity for those of you who are not yet at a place with your knitting where you want to sort of make up your own pattern or to sub the chart into a recipe. Here's another one that one of our wonderful community members have put together for you, who want kind of like something that is like a line by line and will give you a beautiful finished object.
It's gorgeous.
So we'll link that below. And then I'm also going to invite you guys to, if you haven't already done so, I do this once a week as I go on our various, like, I go on Making, I go on Instagram, and I look up the tag Inspired by KAL to see the stuff that people have made, and Inspiration Waterfall is exactly how I feel about it.
Absolutely.
There are socks, there are hats, there are
blankets.
Many versions of mittens, there are blankets, there is a sleep sack for a baby, there is every
poncho,
every single construction of sweater that you can think of. It's happening.
Yes.
So I really, whether you want to participate in the by knitting something or not, I'm obviously biased because we're hosting the knit along and I'm participating in the knit along, but
and we love this motif.
And we love this motif. But like Inspiration Waterfall in terms of how you can take just a little design, a little piece of something that you love, and all that can come from that through community, through shared inspiration.
Yes. And people flipping the design, like flipping it, mirroring it, like just, I mean, there are no boundaries.
There's a sweater. So this is my progress. This is where I am.
Oh.
But there's a sweater that has, how would I show it? Maybe I should just find a picture, but I'm going to do this weird like thing in which they've done like multiple repeats where there's like,
yeah, like mirrored, right?
And then it's like
was it, did you see
yes,
this
and
one
then
where
it's like this, and it's a full color work, but it's
I'm covering it.
Like, anyway, that did not do justice to her beautiful just, oh God.
Hopefully you get the idea.
Christine did this all over sweater with multiple motifs. And she's just one of many, many things. That was just
so
one that
many.
sort of like blew my mind,
Oh
in
my
which I was
gosh.
like, my brain could not piece the motif together in this sort of creative way I've just been doing all over, and subbing it into patterns. But
yeah.
Inspiration.
Gita is another one.
Oh
We had our little knit event, and we were going around and seeing, like, you know, what are people working on. Gita comes out. I think there were 6 or 7 finished, and not mittens. You know, like, sure, okay, I guess maybe 6 or 7 if you had like mittens. No. She had like a blanket. She had like 2 sweaters. She had a poncho. She had like we were all on there just like spellbound by the fantastic, like it's just incredible.
Yeah,
so much fun.
If you want to participate with us in the KAL, all of the details are below. And then if you wanted to kind of participate with us in like a live interactive kind of way, we do have 2 things that are coming up this month of October. So this coming Saturday, October 8th, on Instagram, Loretta Natalja are hosting an Instagram live at 5:30 a.m. Yukon time, in which they have figured out how to use Instagram in a really amazing way so that you can come on and you can just kind of watch them talk about their KAL process. But they're also have figured out a way where if you're participating in the KAL and you're knitting something and you want to talk about it and you want to show it off, that they're going to figure out a way that you, through your Instagram, can go live with them and and talk about it. So if that's something,
another window.
Super cool. They did it last time for Cast On Day, and it was so much fun. They've decided to sort of host this once a month. So the next one is this Saturday, October 8th. In order for you to participate at 5:30 a.m. Yukon time, you're going to hop onto your Instagram account and you're going to look at sort of the top row in which there are these like little circles, and there should be a little circle that says Donna Maria's daughter has gone live. And if you clicked on that circle, which normally would take you to like an Instagram story, it will give you the opportunity to join in on the live, either as somebody who's watching it or somebody who's watching it who then joins in and ends up being part of the live. So that's happening October 8th. And then on Saturday, October 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be hosting our next Zoom virtual knit night, and the information on how to sign up for that, you do need to sort of pre-register. It's free, but the October 22nd Making Knit Night, you would register through the Making app. We'll include all of the details down below, and that's an opportunity to be in a group on Zoom, to knit together, to meet some other fellow makers who are participating in the knit along. Some people who are not participating in the knit along but just decided to come anyways because they're excited about the knit along. Each time
we've had people are like, I don't even know what this is, I just saw it. And we're like, amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So opportunity to meet other makers, chat about your progress, and just have a little fun and inspiration and community and more inspiration waterfall for you. So those are all the things that I wrote down that we had to talk about, in addition to the past 2 hours of waxing nostalgic about yarn and wool and people we love, and how much we love this craft as a portal for you to know yourself, to meet other people, to honor yourself, to take care of yourself. We hope that all of these things are at the center of your making today and all the days that you're working with your hands.
Oh, well, I couldn't say anything more than that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm so happy that you guys are with us. We are absolutely thrilled to know that there are all these people in this world that are similar to us in whatever way, right? Like we might have lots of things that we might be different with, but we are connected in this bit. And this KAL has really, it's an interesting thing how it all worked out, right? Because I don't think we ever would have thought that we would start our podcast with a KAL. Like, I don't think that's the typical route, but it was the KAL that brought us, it was the inspiration. It was funny enough, the inspiration to even start our podcast, to finally do it, came through this KAL. And I think it's also what's really helping us see like what is possible, you know, with like putting ourselves out there, and then being able to find all these people in the world that now can connect with us because of that. And then they're hopefully connecting with each other. It seems like they're all then connecting. It's this big web of beauty.
Yeah, and how we support each other in our inspiration, right? Yeah. How we sort of spark inspiration and hopefully something beautiful in our lives with each other.
Yeah.
So,
and Frisco's saying, he's like, it's about time, ladies. Can we go? I'm tired. Oh yeah, he does.
So we'll see you maybe on the Instagram Live, maybe at our knit night, and probably in a month or so, which is how we're trying to pace ourselves with the podcast and having enough stuff to show you. Although apparently if we wait 1 month, then
this happens.
That happens.
Yeah.
So
we will see.
We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.